Hello, everybody. We're Team Shift from Patrik Schumacher Studio. We are doing metaverse project. So it's a pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you so much. My name is Guillermo Musi.
My name is Nicholas Yohan George.
My name is Yumei Zhu.
And without more further ado, we're going to start. Well, this is the content we're going to speak about this night. We kind of develop our project in this structure. So we're going to start by explaining study brief, then thesis, case studies, vector fields, etc. And if you see that happy face at the end, it's because we have a little surprise for you. So, well, the studio investigates the future of social communication in post-COVID-19 virtual spaces. It's very focused on developing a virtual design school in the metaverse and integrating diverse disciplines and interaction spaces. Basically how to interact without the boundaries of the physical world. This year is focused on education, and we're taking Bauhaus as our main case study for developing this project. So nowadays, education has become increasingly complex, adapting to the rapid evolution of technology and diverse needs of students and educators. Traditional methods of teaching and learning often struggle to keep pace with the demands of a highly interconnected and never-changing world. This is particularly true in design disciplines, where collaboration, exploration, and experimentation are essential. Understanding the complexity of teaching and learning in this context, Shift proposes a groundbreaking approach that bridges the physical and digital worlds. By leveraging the metaverse, Shift creates a dynamic digital campus designed to enhance education for architecture, fashion, and product and digital design. This project integrates innovative tools, seamless navigation, and immersive experiences, offering opportunities for interaction and exploration that transcends the limitations of the physical world. Through its design, Shift redefines how we engage with education in a digital age.
So as our first case study, we studied about the Bauhaus, how modern day design was generated in Bauhaus, and how multiple disciplines were combined and fused together to create interdisciplinary design researches. And in this, we understood that the combination of spaces were such that most of the development were happening on where there was connection between different disciplines, and the public spaces were the major epicenters of design research. We also looked into how researchers are developed here at DRL, how industry specialists from different backgrounds join together to develop cross-disciplinary projects.
So case studies, we kind of saw the opportunity that the metaverse offers today. We have these two case studies that we took. We have Decentraland and Worlds, which are good for us to start knowing what could we enhance and what are the possibilities of the future. By that, we have this case study that was our most direct one because we saw all the potential of the metaverse. By seeing a project that was never been built by our director, it was so impressive when we had the opportunity to see this project in this scale. So we took advantage of the digital environment, and we scanned ourselves to create the digital avatar that we're going to use. The idea is that everybody has that. Like, we want realistic avatars for every student with real-time reactions, as you see on the right side, that reacts to the face expressions. And while having these spaces,
we also studied what all spaces would be needed in each discipline, and how they should be connected with each other so that there could be more correlation between each discipline.
We studied how spaces could enhance and manipulate it. How could we transform spaces depending on the needs and then the user requirements? We studied how could we transform a public and semi-public space into semi-private and private. We then thought, how could we proceed to the design language? We chose vector fields as our main language for the design process. After the first catalog, we we knew that we had to go further on this, and we wanted to be serious about how we could control vector fields. We created our algorithm, starting by a simple plane and trying to control different kind of noises. Then we proceed to 3D. After having a multiple 3D catalog, then we tried to understand what were the constraints that were limiting this shape to attach to the plane and to control the height. Then we tried to control how could we create, terminate, and control the fluid of the vector fields. Then we apply that to a simple sphere, a simple mesh. After understanding that we could enhance this to the mesh, we then tried to apply it to a more complex geometry. We failed here, so we wanted to control it even more further. And by some tweaks in the algorithm, we were finally able to control the vector fields to be scattered across the geometry. This is not a projection of the vector field, but a generation of the geometry with the vector fields. Then we apply this simulation into the actual model, the design of the software that we created for the campus. Then we transform the particle simulation into actual lines that has strokes, like paintings from a canvas, and that start with thick lines, thick profiles, then become too thin, where in the middle we have a thinner and more permeable experience. In the outside, the semiology of the colors become darker. Acknowledge the user that whenever he has a navigational system with the architecture. By that, we also control different kind of profiles and different kind of treatments to the vector fields. For each discipline, we have, for architecture, a more discrete, more simple, more translucent effect of blades, like profiles that are generated across this curved geometry. Then for fashion design, we create the blades more like a simple kind of textiles scattered across the geometry that are responding all the time in real time to the vector fields. Then for product and digital design, we chose to go to a more detailed geometry, more like a kind of little product that you can create. So this is always floating across the vector fields in that space. In the metaverse, there's no context, but we decided to create a context for semiological navigation purposes. For architecture, we have London. For fashion design, we have Paris. And for product and digital design, we have San Francisco. These cities create not just a natural environment where these three cities come together, but also a navigational system, where semiology comes here as a strong guidance for the user, where they know where to go by seeing the high landmarks that are scattered across the project. Textures are simulation as well. Part of semiology does not come across extrinsic, but also the intrinsic dichotomy of each space. So we have a catalog of different kind of vector fields. Depending on the pattern, we have different kind of discipline and different colors for each space. Then we have this scattered across the whole project, where the project becomes a complex layer of puzzles, where a user can navigate by guiding between the colors, vector fields, soffit. Then we have, without the thick layer, we have all the scatter vector fields spaces across the project. Then we have co-working spaces. Then we have working spaces in the central space that are mixed use. Then we have the lecture spaces scattered across the whole project. Then the central lecture spaces that work differently because they are for mixed use, where all disciplines intertwine. Then we have the exhibitions. We have exhibition for architecture, we have exhibition for fashion, and we have exhibition for product design, which are also pointing towards a navigation system for each discipline. Then we have in the middle the auditorium.
The MetaTech gathers broad collections from distinct disciplines, and that can be separated and distinguished into three geometries. And the information is ordered in a chronological order, as shown in this diagram. And then welcome to the MediaTek. And this kiosk case are where students can upload their model to the archive. So we have just uploaded our model shift to the archive, and we are finding the guidance to lead us to check the model.
The shift is an intriguing architecture model. Feel free to explore it. If you have any specific questions or need guidance, let me know.
So the archive, as we mentioned before, is aligned with the timeline. And so we start from the Giza pyramid from the 2650 BC to the Khalifa Tower and the future architecture. And then the latest model we have just uploaded is at the end of this space.
I want to talk to Patrik.
You can find Patrik Schumacher over here. Feel free to start your conversation with him.
Yeah, we think it is important to have the AI in the MediaTek so that the students can break out of the time and space and learn from all the grades from the beginning to the end of the time. For example, we can learn mechanics from Newton, evolution from Darwin. Even we can have Tesla and Edison here review the discuss about the AC versus DC based on the latest technology.
That I've always cherished in my work.
And yeah, apparently Patrik is talking with Zaha now, so we can ask the guidance go back to the reception so that she can help more students.
It opens up endless possibilities for creating immersive environments that can evolve and adapt in real time.
You're
pushing
welcome.
the boundaries
I'll head
of
back
how
to the
we
reception.
experience and
If you need
interact
anything
with
else,
architecture.
just let me know.
It's a thrilling. It's wonderful to see you here. We've been discussing the metaverse and its potential to transform architectural practices with fluid and adaptive virtual spaces. I'm quite curious. What are your thoughts on how this could impact the future of design?
Or for showcase, we are just asking the Patrik for a question now. So we are not going to answer this question.
Patrik, I want to ask you about the phenomenology.
Phenomenology, in the context of architecture, is all about the experience and perception of spaces. It's increasingly relevant as we delve into virtual environments like the metaverse. These environments allow us to explore and enhance the sensory experience in ways traditional architecture can't. How people move through and interact with these virtual spaces becomes a new frontier in phenomenological studies. How do you see this influencing our design approach?
Thank you, that's all I need.
You are welcome. If you have more questions in the future, feel free to reach out.
Also, apart from this, we have the information space, the bulletin board, so that students can check the latest information of the events. And then we also have the social hub, where the students can browse and discuss with their teammates.
Then we go across architecture. So, as you remind, we have a more blade-like vector fields. Then this is the space where we have these co-working tables at the top, lecture spaces at the bottom. Then we have discussion tables at the bottom. Then we have fashion design. Then we have, for fashion, we have a catwalk for the models. We have lecture spaces, and we have a catwalk training system. Then we have discussion and working tables. For product and digital design, we then have the working spaces, then we have the lecture spaces, and then we have a testing room for the products. To test the semiology and to see if this actually worked, we run a test with the different subjects that were the first time doing the project, and we saw the same behavior in the EEG waves with an increase of alpha waves, which is relaxation, also a decrease in the heartbeat, and a decrease in the movement of the head.
And to access the functions of the spaces, we started developing furnitures which acts as an interface and that provides specific functions of particular disciplines. And the major functions of each furniture would be more like separate audio channels or sharing platforms, and these could vary from discipline to discipline. They could also have interactive furniture such as this. Here you can see this is an example of co-working furniture where they have a user interface and they can select each particular iteration or option where that would provide a specific function, and they could work and collaborate from this environment. Now, this is another example of co-working where, for example, how it would happen in fashion discipline. They could group in different categories, and how a teacher would be taking classes. The teacher could have its own interface based on the requirement, and how discussion and exhibition or all these functions would be given through different type of furnitures.
Then we come to a phenomenological study that we were very intrigued about. It's ambiguity, and these ambiguous cylinders, we can have the capability of become different shapes in perspective of the angle. At the same time, they're both different, and at the same time they're the same thing. At the same time, they're nothing. So it became a very strong concept for us, because that's how reality is, and that's how metaverse is. It's on the one end it's digital, but on the other end it's someone physical controlling it. We run a lot of tests and experiments on this with different shapes, trying to understand the phenomenon. And then we thought, how could we bring this to a more physical environment? So we thought how could be interesting for a student of fashion that could attend to a fashion week in Paris, or a very intrigued person studying architecture that wants to go to a specific exhibition, or maybe a person that wants to see Patrik inaugurating a book. Then we decided to create a physical satellite, a physical pavilion in Covent Garden. This pavilion is the representation, a digital twin of the physical world. So we have both pavilions, twins in different spaces, in different dimensions. Whatever it's represented in the physical world will be represented in the digital, and vice versa. Then we have a person in the physical, we have a person in the digital. We have these two people coexisting at different dimensions, different spaces. At the same time, like some ambiguous cylinders, we have these two different shapes. How could we bring this physical person into the digital environment, and this digital environment people into the physical world? Now having these two people coexisting in the same space, in different dimensions. Then what happened if the physical person moves, and we could see that in real time? Then we have this collaboration of digital and physical. So we thought, how could we bring this to real? We saw some holographic techniques that are nowadays held in different kind of exhibition concerts, like the ABBA concert in London. Then we thought, what about the meta-Orion glasses that are already developed? There's already 1,000 prototypes, so we thought this could be a very good approach for us to see the digital avatars. And vice versa, we would do advanced visual scanning, volumetric video capture that would bring in real time people into the digital space. Then we decided to design the actual satellite, the physical pavilion, and we started to create a boundary that would be a radius of transmitting. So every people in this space would be transmitted into the digital, and vice versa. The people from the digital in this space would be transmitted in the physical world. And we have in the center a 3D model of our project of the campus. And within this project, what would be exposed is in real time holographic technique, what's happening in the digital space. So we could make people interact even without glasses into the digital. The capability of wearing glasses would enhance just experience, but even without a glass, they could have a glimpse of what the metaverse is in the physical world. So what would this actually be looking like? So we have this person in the digital world approaching the pavilion. And then we have this person in real world. Imagine this is built. We put the glasses on, and then we see the actual avatars that are there in this space. And we could interact, speak, show, discuss, and learn. And then we have this at the same time, so for you to have a glimpse of what it would be like. And now the small surprise we have for you. Can you hold it?
Yeah.
To showcase a live demo of what our project is. So we have this user interface. Sorry, I'm gonna leave the mic here. So we have this user interface where we can use as a menu. Welcome to Shift. So in this space, we can see the different kind of spaces we discussed about before. The exhibitions, the central zone, where people are scattering and starting to join, logging in from the physical to the digital. We have the auditorium. We have the simulation of the particles running in real time, each space with a different semiology, so we could be guided by the architecture itself. So you can see the height increase in the central zone. Then we move across product and digital design, where the little cubes are dancing across the soffit. Then we have the testing room. We have some cool cars over there. A lecture space heading there. Time to go to fashion. We're gonna go there. So we go further across the experience. And we are already in the game. So let's go and explore the project a little bit. I'm gonna go fast. Let's do a fast forward. So we're gonna go here to fashion. And here we have a new character that just joined. She's heading across fashion. She wants to start classes. So her class will start now. She's gonna experience a little bit with textiles. The teacher is explaining how to create this in the digital environment, how these behave in a digital environment. What are the capabilities of creating this in a digital environment? How could you transform, manipulate? Design in this digital world would be different. So she then goes after to test it. She creates her own textures, her own fabric design. She's excited about this, so she wants to test it in the testing catwalk. So the avatars is chosen. She can choose any avatar that is over there, unused, of course. Then it's selected. After the selection, she's then gonna apply the design. Let's see how it looks. And not too bad. Yeah, she's happy. Then she's gonna exhibit her project to the jury, like we're having tonight. People from the actual Paris fashion show is over here. So yeah, she's gonna show proud her work. So we're gonna just keep the intro then. Then we're gonna jump to product and digital design. let's see what's happening here. Then here's our friend Mohammed. Then this guy is just joined, and then he's gonna design a car. Sorry, I accidentally quitted the intro. I pressed a key. But, well, he designed this car. So, what cool it would be if we could use this car, right? Well, in Shift you can. So let's try to use it. It's kind of hard because it's not very well designed by Mohammed. My God. I swear I drive better in real life. I swear. So let's try to escape this. Let's end our test. Let's end our test, sorry. Then we're gonna go to a different space.
Now there is a main lecture happening in the central auditorium. So people from all different disciplines, people from all different disciplines would come together in the main lecture auditorium. And look who's giving the lecture. It's Patrik. And people from different disciplines could listen to Patrik and gain his inputs about fashion or product or even architecture and what his theories would be. And now we walk into architecture. And in architecture, what happens is first we start with how we can develop models and sketches. And this is an environment where they could have a collaborative development of a model, and a team could develop it together. They could real-time see it in the virtual environments and make changes accordingly, and at the same time they could consult with their tutor and get inputs from their tutor, where the tutor would also gain access to what they develop in real time and probably make suggestions. Let's see what the tutor is about to do. Maybe it's a redo or maybe it's approved. But they decided they need to go inside the model and see what's happening. The tutor seems like he's happy and he sketches the suggestions and changes. So now a different part where is that they could go to a discussion space where the character can discuss about a different project or a development. They can import a model or import a model that they develop in the real world and discuss it with their tutor. So the possibility is that once in each of these furniture, the options are different. For here in discussions, it would be more about suggestions or modular changes, but now they could go to a co-working space where there could be a wide extension of options where they would probably look deeper into design. They can access the co-working furniture where they have a set of user interfaces, and that would provide a particular set of options. Now the character decides to import one particular model that they want to discuss with their teammates. And once they import the model, they could explore the model and look in different aspects of it, and also at the same time discuss it with different people in different interfaces. For example, here they're accessing only one spatial interface, so they just discuss with one. But if they want to discuss simultaneously, they need to access a different interface.
So this is just a glimpse of what we could have in a digital environment. Of course, this in the physical is not possible. That's where this brings to the possibilities that we could have. Patrik left the auditorium very suddenly, so I think he actually has a physical attendance to go. It's the Covent Garden new pavilion inauguration. So if you see this project, it's completely surrounded by water. And you may have the question, but what about the ambiguous cylinders and ambiguous figures? So this is where the concept comes in. And if we cross here, very gently, it becomes Covent Garden. And by crossing this space, we have this section where we can distinguish avatars. The avatars in black and white, they are not having the glasses. We cannot interact with them. And Patrik is super excited about this. So thank you very much. I hope you like it. At the end of this, they were streaming 2 videos. They will have QR codes. Everybody can have access online to play this game. And welcome to Shift. Thank you. Also, feel free to play the game. There's a keyboard over there. I can bring the mouse if you want. I don't know if anybody wants to. If not, it's okay.
Why don't we have the discussion first? Yeah.
Okay. Should I? Okay.
Here. Pass it to anybody who would like it. Yes.
Thank you so much. It is a very interesting story. First of all, I must say that for the first look, your project looks like a mixture of so many errors. And I see this image when you combine LA, Paris, and London. It is impossible to combine these things. We can discuss historically speaking, architectural speaking, morphologically, topologically, etc. But at the end, it is for me very fantastic work. Why? Because I often think, what is metaverse? Is it a concept of space, concept of 3 or 4 dimension? Is it a concept of new kind of ideology? So what I find very interesting in your project, because it is somehow very fictional situation to show us that the metaverse is like an island. Paradoxically speaking, we always think about metaverse as a widespread space without limits, etc. But in my opinion, metaverse is like an island, and you design an island to show us that metaverse still depends of our creativity, our possibility to imagine situation and to input all the things to create new values. Because of that, I find that somehow fully hypothetical with errors projects are totally it is dialogue with the metaverse concepts, and it shows that this is still island which we choose to produce new forms of architecture. So thank you for deeply use that tools to show us that we still in the field with metaverse, in the field of architecture.
Thank you.
This side. Thank you. A great project, I think. Very compelling visually, but also very well developed in all the way the space is used. There's just one part of it that I am been a bit struggling with, and it's the jump of scale between the metaverse and the pavilion. And I don't know if it's because the pavilion is much smaller compared to your island that I find it a slightly less resolved, maybe, the relation between the two. I don't know if it's the scale. That's what I was asking myself. Is it the scale that makes it so difficult to relate between the two, or is that is something else? What do you think?
We're just provoking and proposing something that could happen. A pavilion, a small pavilion, is something very down to earth that we could actually build. A pavilion is a very easy space to control in a way that you can control dimension. It doesn't have a specific use. So using that as an excuse to design a bridge between two worlds was not just a good first approach for us, but also we found that it could be very interesting to ask the question, what if? And the what if become a very interesting answer for us, because it's not about scales, it's about experience. And what would happen if I could, again, speak or propose or give a lecture to somewhere that is not here, and it's available to everybody, giving access to a person that is not in the AA, for example. There's a lot of students that would die to be here, like we are right now. Imagine that we could give that opportunity to everybody, very democratic. Maybe, of course, with subscriptions, but the idea is that this could be accessible for everybody.
Thanks for the presentation. I feel it was almost like a lecture, what is possible in the metaverse, which was great. I mean, it was good presentation just to get into the topic. I quite liked also what you did with the surrounding. On one side was the shards, then there was Eiffel Tower, and I quite thought this quite exciting that you can step out and suddenly in a different world. I mean, that's cool. When it comes to your design, I thought maybe the spaces could be a bit more differentiated. I mean, I was quite excited when the car fell in the water and suddenly maybe I see fishes or something totally different. It could have been, the pavilion could go down under the water or go high up. So you see something different, because I think the break of suddenly you're in Covent Garden is quite cool. Like, this totally different. So, great work. You showed a lot of stuff, what is possible. So it was really inspiring. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
And you have to work on Patrik's character.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he was here so often this term.
Thanks. I found it very compelling, much more homely than previous evocations, and I was beginning to get really into it at the end there. I was beginning to think, I could live here without any great problem. So I found jumping into it was fine. I think you'd done a lot of work creating it. It's still got the usual problems with figures, because that's what lets down all these worlds, is the way people walk and so on. Patrik, obviously looking very handsome. Got to be careful what to say there. But I thought it was compelling. I thought it was a nice storyline, and I thought you took us into it in a way which was, what's the word? Was it used? Democratic. I thought the notion of it being a democratic space, in the sense that everybody can join it, I think is really fundamental. It's good. I enjoyed the presentation. Terrific. And a lot of work. Terrific amount of work.
Thank you.
I really like that you started with the scanning yourselves, and you talked about facial expressions, and I think it's actually a good place to really experiment and somehow extrapolate from where we are now. I mean, you have shown a bunch of things that are possible today, but we are it is obviously rapidly evolving, and we are just at day one of this technology, right? And so what I liked is the two promises, I think, that you touched on. One, that there's actual feedback in the way I gesture and my facial expression tells you what supports what I'm saying. But then also you started to play around with this mixing the physical and the virtual space, and I think that's really where there's a lot of potential in the future, not just kind of as an ambassador, if you like, where now you have like an embassy where people can get curious, but I think even further, the beautiful thing about real-time technology is that it doesn't matter. Once you have built the environment, it can be in VR and you can have a headset on, or you can in a desktop, or I can be on my phone, or I can be in AR glasses, right? And I think it's that richness of experience, or this freedom of choice, that I can switch between all these different modes of engaging, that is really valuable. And I think it's good that you hinted on that. I think what what one could do in the future is be even more provocative in just extrapolating from today, and because there are certain things that we already know are happening, right? And if I go to the very far end, and this may be impossible, but if I try to connect the project before you and this one, I think there is actually in our lifetime the possibility not only of creating dynamic spaces that react to our program or our behavior, but there's also the opportunity that those spaces are highly customizable, meaning that if you think about information at this moment in time, there could be a bucket of information, and you as an architect, and this person as an engineer, and this person as a biologist, they can look at this information in different ways through different lenses that help them understand what they are looking at. And so if you talk about collaboration between different disciplines, I think one of the core problems that we have is that we need to understand each other better. But we have all been trained in our secret language, in our secret way of understanding, how an engineer looks at it, or how a biologist or a designer looks at it, right? And I think that one of the really big promises of the technology is that we can not only translate languages like we do now, in real time, but we can even translate experiences. So we all have different ways in which we understand content, and we are trained to understand it in a certain way. And so now what I'm excited about is the potential to integrate almost like dynamic content render engines, in those environments. And because that would really be something that we cannot do in the real world, and it would have a massive impact on fostering collaboration between different disciplines. And lastly, I think why I'm so obsessed with this topic is that I do believe that we're facing a bunch of quite complex problems in this world, and it does need a lot of different disciplines to come together. And for this, we have to understand each other, which hopefully creates empathy for each other, and then we can co-create, right? And so I feel like you have done a great job in creating the frame, and now the next level would be to speculate a bit more about what actually could be possible in the very near future. But I think it's a great work, and thank you very much.
Thanks to you. Thank you.
Wow, yeah, I'm very happy with this. You should be proud of yourselves, and it's very rewarding to see this second really striking iteration. And it shows, first of all, what I want to reflect on, first of all, it is architecture to create and design in the metaverse, and so it's definitely within our domain, and we will take over that version of the internet. But this version of the internet is at the same time in very, very new ways and more potent ways competing with the world of the physical built environment. So these kind of venues will work and compete and outcompete potentially some of the physical venues, and maybe all organizations will have both physical and virtual. And that's why it's also important that I do believe that the way we access and interface with these worlds is not only remotely from home, but also in spaces where there are windows into this virtual world we collectively engage. This was an iteration the first time of the metaverse studies where we did this kind of focused on that physical digital integration. But it's also very nice to see that we tried the first time to do something more, not only work environment, but a school, which has these different domains, collaboration, exhibition, multiple disciplines, etc. So I think and in the aesthetics, trying to sense how literal we have to be, how many tropes we know, how many degrees of familiarity we have to carry. And I think the three iterations we have this way and there go further than the previous one, and developing more kind of peculiar, not necessarily anti-gravitational, because we are still, there's verticality, there's a sense of direction, of orientation which we need, but a new aesthetic, a more dynamic aesthetic, more transparent aesthetic. So I think that works for me in this project and the other two as well. So that's very rewarding to see. And in the end, it's also this, then when you're engaging in the interaction and we see people and we want to join in and see the product, then this architecture does become not a spectacle, but it's just a frame which allows us to observe where people are gathering, anticipate where something might happening. We see distance, but we also have a sense of enclosure and intimacy. So all these things where the thing itself, the architecture is just a frame for the social interaction. And that's very important that you brought that home by seeing as a day in the life of and let us into the events and what it's all about. And then the architecture is just a supporting frame, and that's the way I want to look at it. It's not the spectacle itself, Although there's also this element of first being attracted into something. There's something going on, something you want to participate in. Once you're there, you just immerse yourself in the interaction and in the social learning, and you're not staring at it's not a connoisseurship. You're not staring at the architecture. You're engaged. So that's what it comes across beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe this one. Well, people can hear me.
Well,
They're all down.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
this one. This one was cool. Yeah. I think it has been incredibly compelling. In fact, that you take us through the way that you did. For me, it has opened up a whole other perception, if you want, about these projects. I find the kind of multi-layered experience and completely scaleless and with a whole bunch of possibilities, because, well, here for example, you presented the fashion design student still in a very conventional, quote unquote, experience of I am learning something that a teacher is conveying to me. I am doing it alone and I am presenting it to the public. But that whole thing would be completely different if you were, for example, interacting with experts from the start, or you were doing this in a collective way, or many other things, So I think that the kind of demonstration that you have done of some of the possibilities is, for me, mind-blowing. And I think that I very much relate to the comments of the complex challenges that we have at stake, and the kind of opportunities of working simultaneously. Because I think, for example, back to the case of the fashion, but if I could have, in those selection of patterns, I could have immediate access to to material engineers, to sewing experts, etc. I would have a palette of knowledge that is immediately available for me to make choices, and that is a completely different experience of learning. That some of us are really trying hard to bring it into the physical world, this possibility to work with multiple disciplines simultaneously. But here it is immensely multiplied, and I could be immensely multiplied. And for that, I think it's just absolutely wonderful. So thank you.
I'm going to maybe come from a slightly different place, maybe mostly because you guys chose to make the presentation very narrative. So maybe it's a cinematic end of the day kind of feeling from my side, but there was, I think, two things that were really striking to me. One was this thing about the real coming into the virtual, and I remember my brother was working for a company that was dealing with fashion brands and so forth, and they were early adopters of AI, and they had this technology where they were trying to say, like, you take a photograph of a color that you like, and it would scour all the database to basically pull up or a pattern that you like. and just some ways to make this dialogue between the real and the virtual, between desire and accessibility, and also novelty. I think this word novelty for me means a lot in the metaverse because it's very easy to disengage with the metaverse. I take my goggle off, I shut it off, I close my laptop, and I'm out. And so the other aspect that I think is about the real is this kind of uncanny valley feeling of taking now these real artifacts and bringing it into the virtual, and this peculiar aspect, like when you guys were kept showing Patrik giving lectures. I remember there was a campaign in London for Being John Malkovich, the movie. And it's like Malkovich. You had all these John Malkoviches throughout. And I can imagine every student could have their own personal Patrik. And all of these kind of strange things where like even the identity of one here is something that can be quite playful. And it's not about the comical aspect of it. It's more about like what we need to visualize for our interactions to have kind of more human and maybe more emotive engagement. So when you recognize the person that you're speaking to, you have a different connection, right? When you hear the voice potentially or the sound, you know, they could have many different manifestations. It's primarily visual here, but I just kept thinking, if I could hear the voice, you know, I think it would be pretty striking. You know, there are like almost these ghosts that appear throughout of people and conversations and so forth, which I think at some moment in time, I don't know how you take stock of it, but I appreciate these images and these videos in your presentation because I can see how people could try to participate and want to contribute to something, which is what's made social media social, is the act of contribution. But here we could potentially try to make it, you know, maybe a bit more serious in terms of maybe some of these larger problems that people are talking about. But we're not really talking about what those problems are, and we're not really talking about how we foster, you know, a kind of new language. The 3D model, you know, it's almost like a new file format that allows us to basically take this data and make use of it from our different specializations. So when you're talking about that kind of information spatially, I do think you guys should take a moment to just try to problematize what that really is. What do we really mean by that? Because just remoteness in this particular project, I think, is not enough to just have everybody kind of coming together. It works well if you have a multiplayer video game where people are just doing it for entertainment, but it's very difficult when it's about difficult problems or when it's about learning. So you're competing with a YouTube world, which at the same time, I don't think anybody would have designed YouTube and thought that that would be the perfect platform. But I do think like at some moment in time, it's become that because people can see that they can easily generate something, upload it. It becomes very intuitive. So I just think you guys should try to think a little bit more about that. And I think the pavilion for me is not offering that real world friction. So I do think it could be an interface, but I'm not sure that you're working on what would make it a radically different interface. You're focused more on the connection between the two, almost like a digital twin. But I think what it means to bring people together physically has certain implications, and what it means to have a much more collective virtual world, has other implications. And I think the more you can tease that out, I think the better you can help shape that environment. And the AI contribution to this, I definitely think is an important thing for the metaverse to actually be something which isn't so dependent on me and Marta interacting in a virtual environment. You could be interacting with a whole series of AI agents, and I don't think it really matters if it's real or virtual. And so I think you should see this project much more hybrid as a conceptual thing. Everything is hybrid. And it's just a degree of how virtual or how real you want to basically move that slider. And then I think, you guys could potentially be in a situation where you could challenge, I think, these kind of caricatures of the meta glasses and because I think that's the early adoption, first principle of technologies. Those things will disappear and it'll be more intuitive. And then that, I think, will allow these things to do like what we're seeing here. Like your cell phone can basically scan anything with a high fidelity and include that with different resolutions. And, your space of resolution, your fidelity has different implications. So I'm just basically saying that these kind of questions, I think, are things that it's important to try to see where the serious work is going to come. Like, what's the next versioning of this? The learning part, I think, is really difficult because it really somehow sets the discussion that everybody's personal motivations can be shared in an interface and collective. So I think the challenges for that, the more you can demo it, the more that you can use it as a use case, I think the better you will be able to somehow test your own assumptions and make informed decisions. But I think overall, I think it's a good presentation, and I think you guys have come a long way, and I'm sure you should invite people when this concludes today to test it and to try it, just so that you can also see some of the implications of exploring that. But I just want to thank our critics after the first day of 2 days, because we're continuing this tomorrow for anybody who would like to entertain our company for another day. And I also want to make the invitation for Marta's keynote tomorrow, because I think that's going to be something very meaningful for the DRL. I'm putting a little pressure on for Marta. No, I'm joking. Because she's working on a lot of amazing things, and I think it's an interesting discussion that we need to have in the DRL. So I think it'll be very interesting to invite everybody tomorrow after the jury to sit for the keynote. Well, anyway, I just want to thank everybody for and on behalf of the DRL, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.